Supremacy Games. Chapter 1911 to 1920. Chapter 1911 Still as shrewd as ever. Back to the present, after Emer saved Amonare's heart from Felix's clutch. How did this happen? Amonare's pupils broadened in disbelief. Emer's reaction might not be as drastic, but his thinned pupils were enough to tell of his present state. Without wasting a moment, both of them switched to their wisp within Medusa, just to witness a whole different scene. A scene they had been watching for a while now, putting their hearts at ease as they dealt with Felix and his clone. It was of Medusa, totally dominating and pressuring Asna to oblivion with her ultimate divine techniques and unique specialization, celestial petrification. It was as real as it could get, making them incapable of telling which reality was correct. For a ruler, this was impossible unless Stone of Reality. Emer said as he gazed deeply into Asna's faint mocking smirk, seemingly quite pleased with their success at pulling a fast one on them. I can't believe it worked, my dearest husband, you are still as shrewd and brazen as ever. Asna grinned while glancing at the crucified Medusa and Felix's hand that was holding her heart tightly, uncaring about the dreaded look she was giving him. She knew that the rulers couldn't do anything to save Medusa in time since Felix had used his reality manipulation powers to have a total lockdown on the area surrounding her. He had used much more than this to create this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She couldn't help but think back to the days of their preparation and how this plan came to birth. Many years ago, a soft glow of the moonlight peeked through the window of a cozy wooden room, casting a gentle light on the side of a comfy bed. On the bed, Felix and Asna lay wrapped in each other's arms beneath the warmth of their blanket, their bodies snuggled close as the cool night air brushed against their skin. Asna rested her head against Felix's chest, her fingers tracing the patterns on his tattoos. They had just finished a long round of intimate lovemaking, leaving them completely satisfied and relaxed. If it isn't for those three fogies, this moment can be cherished freely without any worries. Asna's expression turned sour all of a sudden, her mood dampened after being recalled of what awaited them at the end of the line. Don't tell me you were thinking of them during the act. Felix chuckled jokingly. Shut up, don't be disgusting. Asna elbowed him in the rib with an annoyed look. Look who's talking about disgust, Felix teased with a wide grin, you weren't disgusted when we were. Boredom. Before Felix could finish his sentence, he found himself lying naked near the lake with his face planted on the ground, eating a mouthful of dirt. I deserved that. Yet, he merely chuckled as he stood up, dusting his ass while walking back to the house. When he entered the room, he found Asna staring at him with a faint blush on her cheeks, clearly quite ashamed. For two celestials to be having sex, God knows what kind of freaky stuff was going on behind those walls. We can't underestimate them, Asna murmured, changing the subject swiftly. Those three fogies, there's too much we don't know about their powers. Felix nodded, his gaze focused on the ceiling, though his mind was elsewhere. Yeah, their abilities are mostly shrouded in mystery. Every time they've made a move, it's been calculated with energy consumption in mind. No one has ever seen them go all out yet, which makes them even more dangerous. Asna shifted slightly, allowing Felix to return to bed with her. And then there's the matter of their home ground advantage. We'll be fighting on their territory, and they know every inch of it. That gives them an edge we can't afford to overlook. Felix smiled wryly, his hand moving to run through Asna's hair, the soft strands slipping between his fingers. We'll be walking into the unknown, and I don't like that. Asna tilted her head slightly to meet his gaze. As much as I keep insulting them, they are extremely clever, Felix. They've been in power for a long time. There's no telling what kind of abilities they're hiding. The moment we think we have them figured out, they'll hit us with something unexpected. We have to be prepared for that. Felix nodded in agreement. Which means we need to plan for every contingency. We can't go in thinking we'll overpower them with brute force through your spiritual pressure. What if your spiritual pressure hasn't increased to the point it can overpower them? That won't work. Asna's hand lay on his chest as she considered his words with a solemn expression. If your spiritual pressure proves to be ineffective, we'll need to divide and conquer. Force them to separate. If we can isolate one ruler and eliminate him first, we might be able to tip the scales in our favor. But even then, it will be extremely challenging. He added. You're right. Isolating them is our best bet, but that's easier said than done. Asna smiled bitterly. They know how to protect each other, and they won't hesitate to regroup if they sense some ongoing foul play. Felix went silent for a little while, seemingly thinking deeply about what was the best strategy to separate the rulers while at the same time ensuring their inability to assist each other. Stone of Reality's powers are the key to our victory. Felix thought to himself, if I am going to use its powers, it needs to be a one-time thing. One move must secure the elimination of a ruler, otherwise, the loss of celestial energy will be too much to come back from. When Felix started thinking in this manner, ideas and plans started lining up in his mind, from which ruler he would target, to how he would bring everything together. After some time, a faint cold smile formed on his lips, leaving Asna to chuckle in amusement. I know that look, you have come up with something devious. It's not devious, but it does require quite a lot of finesse from both of us. Oh ho? Tell me, tell me. Asna's eyes sparkled in interest. It will go like this. During Felix's battle against Amonare. Asna, I am about to start. He shared indifferently. Okay. The moment Felix received a positive response, he tapped into the invisible fabric of reality and went straight to the instructions responsible for Amonare's and Ymir's wisps within Medusa's mind. He was able to find them so quickly because he had already searched for them during his preparation stage, knowing that the fabric of reality was like an infinite book. Without filters or ample preparations, he would spend quite some time to find what exactly he wanted. On the outside, Felix was showing a struggling expression as he kept evading Son of Ra's deadly beams, but inside, a cruel smile was taking form. Let's give you a movie to watch. With one fling of his finger, the temporary modification took place and quite a hefty chunk of celestial energy was devoured from within him. It's done, you are in the clear. Felix said, give a signal when you succeed. It might take longer than I thought. Asna frowned in irritation. When Felix switched to his wisp inside her mind, he saw her getting bombarded with Medusa's petrification beams and other projectiles. Damned ultimate divine techniques. Felix narrowed his eyes solemnly, understanding that they had at most a couple of seconds at best before the veil lifted off from the ruler's wisps. Of course, Felix made it impossible for Medusa's voice to reach her partners, in case she decided to beseech their main consciousness for help. But, all of those modifications were temporary and the only reason they were working was due to him holding down both Ymir and Amonare, forcing them to keep their attention on him. Just do your best, I think I found a way to help you pull it off in time. Suddenly, Felix smiled coldly after his eyes landed on the Son of Ra, the colossal structure of celestial energy. Chapter 1912 Holy Crucifixion Technique. Without an ounce of hesitation, Felix tapped into the fabric of reality and instantly pinpointed the instructions responsible for the burning effect of celestial energy on him personally. Next, he disabled it temporarily after paying a hefty price that made him knit his eyebrows a little. It will be worth it eventually. I have to find a way to get close to the sun without raising suspicion. Felix's thoughts were running wild while making sure to keep the act of being burned by Amonare's attacks. In reality, its burning effects no longer reached him. Before Felix could overthink about his next move, a sense of impending danger suddenly hit him like a truck. Amonare's voice thundered across the battlefield, filled with malice. You can feel it, can't you? The inevitable. I've only been warming up. Let's see how long you last, inside the sun furnace. Is this really happening? Felix's eyes widened in shock as he felt the shift in space around him before a flash of light erupted and blinded him. As he squinted around him, finding himself in the heart of Amonare's sun, Felix didn't know whether to laugh or cry. His own enemy gave him a hand willingly. Having no clue that he had done a big favor to Felix, Amonare channeled the subsequent ultimate divine technique, celestial chains. As he watched Felix getting ensnared by his chains, his cold smile couldn't help but widen. Although he hadn't let down his guard completely, he was certain that Felix was done for, as this combo was his strongest. Celestial chains plus a furnace of heated celestial energy? If it wasn't for Felix's modification on himself, he would honestly be cooked to death, leaving behind him only his hearts. But now? He was seen performing like he was being burned alive, while in reality, his fingers were working overtime, tapping into the wall of reality. With one last tap, Felix's expression turned cold as he shared telepathically, "Asna, prepare to go on offense." The moment he finished, Felix paid the price of the new reality manipulation with none other than the son of Ra. Since the payment was done individually by the universe instead of him, the universe didn't give a sh*t about the ownership of celestial energy used. Thus, the horrifying and shocking scene came to life. The massive son of Ra started twisting and pulling into a tiny black hole, which was manifested by the universe to accept the price. Of course, with this much energy, Felix hadn't done more than merely one modification. He also helped himself a little by merging the black flames and golden flames of the sun in a single blade before firing it together as infinite finality slash. As the slash traveled sliced through reality in the direction of the shocked Amonare, a different scene was ongoing between Asna and Medusa. Boom! 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 The entire battlefield was turned into deadish stone as the sky rained with green rain, touching every corner. Asna was forced to tap into her strongest shields and barriers to avoid the rain and the rest of Medusa's continuous barrage. "You thought you could win against me straight after awakening? You are too green, Asna." Medusa's voice was filled with venom. Ultimate divine technique, eternal petrification. Medusa's eyes glowed with intense green light as she gazed directly into Asna, wanting to freeze her once and for all. Unfortunately, Asna had picked up on its weakness after it was used on her the first time. She evaded her gaze by swiftly blinking behind her. The moment she left, the area was turned into fine dust as it had already been petrified before, leaving it too feeble to handle another round of petrification. "You should try harder than that." Asna sneered, "Your attack might be invisible for even celestials, but it is still a projectile fired from your eyes." "Not bad." Medusa humphed in irritation, "But still, this changes nothing. Your fate with your little husband has been decided the instant you step." Before Medusa could finish her sentence, she felt the entire atmosphere suddenly shift, like it had gotten heavy with another presence. Just as she narrowed her eyes in focus, thousands of glowing golden chains erupted from the ground and the sky, heading straight toward her titan form. The chains moved with lightning speed, wrapping around Medusa's arms, legs, and neck before she could react. "Way, arg!" She gasped in shock and agony as her body jerked violently after the celestial chains tightened their grip, immobilizing her instantly. "Wah, what is this?" Medusa struggled, her eyes wide with disbelief. "How able you?" The chains continued to wrap around her, binding her more tightly each time she struggled. Meanwhile, her celestial petrification energy flared as she tried to resist, but it was no use. The chains were too powerful, too divine, suppressing her abilities completely, which created her understand that they were the real deal. Unlike Amonare's celestial chains, they were a mere replica, which had only the burning effect. The universe's chains were able to weaken and even seal one's powers. The viewers were left startled, not anticipating such a twist in events. How able she use celestial chains? Didn't her awakening have nothing with becoming the universe's consciousness? Aeolus exclaimed in disbelief. "This, I don't know." Athena, the know-it-all, was also left as confused as the rest. At first glance, she was able to spot the difference between Amonare's chains and those ones, making her understand that they were the real deal. In other words, Not even if Asna somehow learned and mastered an ultimate technique this quickly, she wouldn't be able to summon those chains. In her eyes, no, in everyone's eyes, if she had the powers to summon celestial chains from the get-go, there was no point in this struggle. She could solo the three rulers on her own in a few seconds at best. Unbeknownst to them, even Asna was startled, not expecting Felix's way of assistance to be summoning thousands of chains. "You sure treat me like a queen." Asna chuckled lovingly as she gazed at the ensnared Medusa, who was gazing at her with a hint of horror in her eyes. Knowing that those chains must be temporary, Asna didn't waste a single second, carrying her part of the plan at last. Her frigid voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Medusa, your time has come to be judged. Not by me, but by the balance of your own life." Although taken aback by the entire situation, Medusa still snarled, thrashing against the chains. "Judged by you? I am beyond your righteousness." Anyone in her situation would be scared shitless by now, but not her. She understood that her partners were watching the whole thing, and the moment they noticed that she was in actual grave danger, they would come to her rescue. Unbeknownst to her, her partners were watching an entirely different scenario. "We will see." Asna raised her hand, fingers glowing with divine transcendental light, and she spoke in a tone that seemed to echo across the universe. "Holy crucifixion technique." Abruptly, the sky was illuminated with a pure milky white, causing everyone to lift their heads and gaze at a massive cross of pure light, piercing through the petrified clouds as it descended above Medusa. After landing behind her, the chained-up Medusa was pulled by misty sacred light, forcing her upright against the cross. Her arms were pulled wide, her legs locked into place, and for the first time, a hint of uncertainty crossed her furious stare. This was a whole new situation, as she knew that Asna was using laws that she had no immunity against. What is this?" Medusa growled as she felt the weight of the cross behind her. She tried to summon her powers to escape, but the celestial chains created it impossible. "This is your judgment," Asna said with a soft cold voice. "The holy crucifixion technique weighs the sins and virtues of a person's life. The more your sins outweigh your virtues, the stronger the judgment becomes. For the three of you? Do I need to say more?" Asna snickered. Chapter 1913 The Universe's Judgment. "Judge me? Sins? Virtues? Who appointed you as the universe's moral compass?" Medusa sneered coldly. "I am a ruler, the supreme being, no one can judge me. Get off your high horse." Asna ridiculed. "The seven sins and virtues belong to the original being, the universe's consciousness. You will be judged based on his compass." In other words, Asna wasn't the one making the judgment. Instead, it would be the universe based on those 14 laws. As she was done speaking, 14 holy and wicked symbols began to appear around them, representing each sin and virtue. Then, a manifestation of a brilliant scale appeared in the center of those symbols and above the cross. Everything hovered in silent judgment, as though the universe itself was deliberating. Before Medusa could fight back, the judgment began with the cross behind her blazing with an unbearable light, while the seven sins swirled around her like dark specters, whispering accusations from every dark moment of her existence. Whether it was the random massacres, the abuse of peaceful spirits, the many sacrifices for their agendas, and many more heinous acts, everything was being studied and placed on the scales, favoring the side of the seven sins. As for her virtues, they were there, but slim to none, causing the scale not to budge an inch. No one was really surprised by this result, as the three rulers chased after their desires like no one else, not caring about the aftermath or collateral damage as long as their goal was reached. In almost no time, the judgment was complete. Everyone figured as much after seeing 7 holy white nails and 7 wicked black nails emerging from each symbol. Whoosh! 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 Still taken aback by the whole situation, Medusa could only watch as the first holy nail shot toward her right hand, and pierced her wrist until half of it came from the other side of the cross. "Arg, this can't be happening." Medusa couldn't help but groan in pain, causing disbelief to paint her expression as she didn't expect for a second that anything could cause her pain besides the celestial chains. The pain of the three rulers differed from mortals or even unigens. For the three rulers, who could control their bodies perfectly, nothing could cause them pain besides the universe. This meant she was truly being judged by the universe and not Asna. This changed everything as she knew what the universe was capable of and she had no interest in waiting to find her final judgment. Cling! The second holy nail landed on her left wrist, causing her expression to twist after the pain doubled. Emer. Amoan. How long are you planning to watch? She chided her peers. Alas, no one was responding to her call. Cling! The third nail pierced through her tightened feet at the bottom, making her feel like she was glued to a wall. But, Medusa ignored the pain and discomfort, focusing on her radio-silent peers. Emer. Amoan. Still nothing. Seeing the confused look on her face, Asna couldn't help but snicker in ridicule. But, she said nothing to expose their plan. She just kept watching as Medusa was pinned to the cross by a nail of each symbol. She knew this meant that Medusa had failed in the test of each sin and virtue. After all, just because someone wasn't being a bad person, it didn't mean that he was a good person. Medusa gasped as the last nail finally pierced her heart, making her feel like she was truly being burned on a cross. If she had immunity to 7 sins or 7 virtues, this might end differently, but alas, those immunites could be obtained only through wishes. In other words, the universe had to hand them down for a price since their law's existence wasn't meant to be accessed. After all, they were the 7 longings and 7 virtues of the universe's consciousness, they belonged to him and participated in defining his being. If other rules were needed for the cosmos to function and survive, those laws were personal. As Eris and the tenants watched Medusa lashing out in anger, trying to escape the crucifixion and the celestial chains, they couldn't help but think that the universe consciousness had this exact moment in mind when he decided to extract the 7 sins and 7 virtues out of his body. Nothing works on the 3 sovereigns besides those laws and celestial powers. Eris murmured, did he know that Asna and Felix had no chance to win against the 3 rulers without those laws since they would be outclassing them in celestial mastery? Or was it just one big coincidence? Although she was the unigen of chaos and believed in the existence of randomness and coincidences, in this very particular topic, she was 90% certain that it was planned out. This continued to freak her out as it made her understand the immense length the universe's consciousness had to go through for the sake of planning for this very exact moment. What entity or event can push him to this extent in his domain, his own home? With the thought of outsiders being more real than ever, this notion can scare off anyone, even the 3 rulers. Speaking about them, Medusa was seen calling for her partners both telepathically and mentally with their wisps. When she was ignored again, her fears intensified to the point she didn't hesitate to enter her mind and seek out direct contact with her partners. You bastards! Are you forcing me to beg? She cursed furiously. Emer and Amonare turned around in surprise, not expecting her to show up before them while in the middle of the fight. What are you doing here? Amonare raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about? Emer frowned. When Medusa saw their reactions, she knew that something was wrong. With a single glance at the reflection of their pupils, she was stunned to witness a whole different scene going outside. A chill coursed down her spine immediately, making her feel like a prey captured in a well-crafted trap. This made her realize that time wasn't in her favor at all, making her switch her focus to her wisps within both Amonare and Emer and ask for their help directly. Alas, just as she was about to do it, she heard Asna's echo reverberate in her ears with bone-chilling coldness after instantly teleporting before her face. Now, it's time for our judgment. As the last word was etched in her mind, Medusa blinked and found Felix a mere inches away from her visage with the most diabolical sinister smile ever. Yet, she didn't gaze at him for long as she was assaulted by a sudden sharp torment in her chest. When she lowered her head slowly, she came to witness Felix's arm piercing through her chest and grasping tightly into her celestial heart. "Don't mind me, I am just retrieving my core back," Felix whispered with a cold smile. Chapter 1914 Pillar of Celestial Flame and Frost. Without waiting for her to react, Felix yanked her celestial heart from her chest, leaving her staring at the giant hole in stunned disbelief. "You, how foolish are you?" In an instant, Medusa got rid of any negative emotions that could affect her judgments and gazed at Felix with a cold look. She knew that by the time he tried to devour her heart, Amonare and Ymir would already be here, teaching him a grave lesson. As expected, before Felix could bring her heart to touch his chest, her peers teleported a short distance away from them. "It seems we have been taking it too easy on you," Ymir uttered calmly, but everyone picked up on the frigidness in his voice. Not waiting for a response, he unleashed his divine spine-like sword, covered in a chilling blue celestial energy. However, just as he was about to blink on top of Felix, attempting to slice his arm yet again, he found himself suspended hundreds of meters away from Felix. It was like his teleportation had hit a wall, forcing him to stand put. "What's this?" Ymir frowned as he extended his hand, touching an invisible water-like barrier that rippled at the softest touch. "You are thinking too lightly of me if you thought I haven't prepared beforehand for your arrival." Felix smiled carefreely as he stepped away from Medusa with her heart in his grasp. "This entire area has been locked up under the universe's commands and no one can enter it unless I allow them to." To prove him right, Asna instantly appeared behind him without a problem. Unbothered by their murderous looks, he brought Medusa's heart to his chest and didn't hesitate to connect it with his internal system. The moment he did this, he uttered coldly, "Enjoy a front seat row at the execution of your dearest partner." "You dare!" Medusa shouted furiously at the sight of her heart getting integrated perfectly like it was returning home at last. Having no interest in going down without a fight, Medusa switched to her main consciousness, which resided within her celestial heart. When she opened her eyes, she found Felix standing a fair distance on top of the still water of her consciousness space. Ymir and Amonare wisps were also there, but in this scenario, they were pretty much useless as Felix could erase them with a single glance. That's exactly what Felix did. "Wait for your turn." A mere look was enough for their wisps to blow up against their will, as there was no way the spiritual pressure of a wisp could rival the pressure of the real deal, especially if the pressures were even. After getting expelled, Ymir and Amonare glanced at each other in silence outside of the lockdown zone. "What's the move?" Amonare asked coldly. "Medusa isn't one to go down without putting up a decent fight, but I am sure she won't be able to defeat him. I can't put it in words, but our hearts must never get in his hands." It wasn't like Amonare didn't have faith in Medusa to defeat Felix and keep control over her heart. But he was the only one who felt the dread of Felix's hand clutching into his heart. It made him understand that if his heart was to be integrated and he ended in a soul battle, he wouldn't come out victorious. "Let's try to cut down the lockdown, if not," Ymir uttered coldly. "Say no more." Amonare understood what he implied, knowing that it would be time to use what they prepared to deal with Asna if she had ascended to becoming the universe's consciousness. Without further ado, Amonare and Ymir decided to not hold back and use one of their strongest attacks to destroy the lockdown once and for all. They squinted their eyes coldly and lifted their hands to the heavens while their divine auras were raging around them. Felix and Asna looked above their heads after noticing the sky darkening, sensing an overwhelming force gathering in the heavens. They instantly knew that what was about to come was no ordinary attack. Amonare's voice boomed from the sky, filled with divine wrath. "Brat, your lockdown will not hold against the combined might of the celestial sun and frost. You have gone too far, and now you will face the consequences." Ymir said nothing, as the only thing he did was keep his cold eyes locked on Felix while channeling his celestial energy until the ground could no longer support either of them. It collapsed, leaving behind a massive home as they suspended in its center. Yet, no one's eyes were on it. Instead, they lifted their heads high up, gazing at two colossal pillars of pure celestial energy beginning to take shape. One was a pillar of golden celestial flames, blazing with the brilliance and heat of all the suns in the universe, while the other was a pillar of chilling blue frost, so cold it could freeze the very fabric of reality. Under the stunned and dreaded eyes of the viewers, the two pillars twisted and intertwined with each other, merging into a swirling vortex of divine destruction. The sky roared as the combined forces of Amonare and Ymir formed their ultimate celestial attack, a spiraling pillar of celestial flames and freezing frost that towered over the battlefield with a size so immense, it seemed to touch the very stars. As the two rulers aimed the spiraling pillar of destruction at Felix's lockdown and everything within it, their voices echoed in unison, echoing across the shattered landscape. Ultimate divine technique, pillar of celestial flame and frost. Whoosh! The massive vortex of flames and frost descended from the heavens, splitting reality apart like it was a piece of fabric, defying all logic. The flames scorched reality itself, while the frost froze everything in its path, creating unexplainable beautiful phenomena in space as it descended towards Felix's lockdown with unimaginable speed. Inside the lockdown, Felix and Asna looked up, their eyes widening as the destructive pillar tore through the sky, heading straight for them. If this were to land on me, I won't even know how I died. Felix murmured in awe. Even if he hated their guts, he couldn't help but appreciate the level of mastery they arrived in their powers. To create something like this, he knew he would need a great amount of effort and time even as a celestial. Still, he didn't feel an ounce of worry or fear, neither did Asna. Why? The pillar slammed into the lockdown with a deafening celestial explosion, releasing an aftershock so potent, that the three Unigens felt shivers course down their spine. It's going to reach us. Aeolus gulped a mouthful. No, Artemis covered her mouth in fear, it's going to travel across the entire Eternal Kingdom's surface area, erasing everything and everyone at once. There is no need to worry about your people. Athena remarked with a stern tone, by the time the aftermath reaches them, the battle will have been ended. In other words, whether the outcome went in Felix's favor or the three rulers, the aftermath would be taken care of. Boy, you might be able to manipulate reality, but if we destroyed it, there will be nothing for you to manipulate. Amonare sneered as he watched the divine pillars creating a pitch-black void as it kept lasering down the lockdown. On the other hand, Ymir's expression didn't seem pleased, his squinted eyes were affixed on the lockdown, making him see that the lockdown wasn't cracked with great difficulty through the blinding light. Before he could wonder about the answer, a loud laughter echoed across the battlefield. After it died off, Felix's hardened voice resounded in everyone's ears akin to a thunderclap. But, who told you I modified reality? He grinned, thanks to you, I had a whole sun of condensed celestial energy ready to be used. It was more than enough to write a complete new instructions. Can you guess what I wrote? Oh, it seems like there is no need. Whoosh! The moment he finished, the powerful combined pillars of destruction seemed to have lost 99% of their energy, dying off at a noticeable speed. Eventually, it went away, leaving behind a giant piece of rock suspended in an infinite void. As for the lockdown, it merely rippled for a couple of moments before it returned to its peaceful state. The viewers were all left stunned and speechless, gazing at Felix with questionable and admiring looks. Even Amonare and Ymir seemed to have their authoritative auras stolen from them by Felix, like all of this build-up, just for their attack to fail at putting a mere dent in the barrier. For a ruler, this was an unimaginable scenario. Yet, the one losing aura the most was none other than Medusa, who was receiving the beatdown of a lifetime within her mind. It was so bad, that she was forced to switch her focus to her wisp inside her peers' minds and shout out loud, "He is going to kill me." Chapter 1915 The Ultimate Form. The rulers were startled to hear Medusa's beseeching voice so quickly, making them understand that the battle wasn't going as they predicted. They thought she could hold out for a few seconds at least, giving them enough time to come up with other ways before committing to their final card. But now? All they could do was glance at each other sternly, making up their mind. Meanwhile, within Medusa's mind, a shocking scene was happening live before the tenants. Felix was absolutely torturing Medusa, leaving her no time to even catch her breath. The battle was so one-sided, that they started to doubt if she was the real ruler, who terrorized them ever since their birth. The Stone of Reality's powers are truly dangerous when abused. Apollo remarked as he played the lyre, busy creating one score after another throughout the whole confrontation. To weaken her strength to this degree, he must have committed a massive chunk of his stock. Eris narrowed her eyes at the sight of Medusa trying her best to defend against Felix's assault, but to no avail. She seemed as frail as a mortal, like she was cursed. This was exactly what Felix did, as he knew that the battle would take forever to finish if he refused to utilize his reality-altering powers. From the very beginning of his planning, he always planned on using the Stone of Reality to weaken the rulers, but such an ultimate move had to be done carefully to maximize the benefits. When combined with the celestial chains and the crucifixion effects still live, Medusa had absolutely no shot against Felix. Boom! Arg! With one flaming round kick to the stomach, Medusa was sent hurling across the waters, splashing it everywhere before she finally came to a halt. Whoosh! Felix blinked right above her and kneed her right in the face just as she was about to stand up, shattering her nose and lips, and making her bleed everywhere. Yet, she lifted her head and her gaze flashed with the deadly green light that could turn gods to stone. Alas, it fizzled out, nothing more than a faint spark before vanishing entirely. Felix held her by the neck and tightened his grasp until her beautiful visage went as pale as a piece of paper. Then, he tensed his fist as he concentrated celestial black flames in them and pulled it right in front of her face. "What are you doing?" Medusa gasped while her eyelids trembled at the sight of the deadly fist being so close to her face. "Giving you a well-deserved beating." Before Medusa could react, Felix's fist became a blur of motion, faster than her weakened state could track, as his fist slammed into her face with brutal force continuously. Thud! 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 Medusa's body crumbled under the never-ending blows, leaving her hanging by her neck akin to a lifeless chicken. Blood was spilling everywhere while her serpentine hair had already turned into a mashed-up bloodied soup of snakes. "You've terrorized and tormented us for eons," Felix growled coldly. "How does it feel to finally be powerless?" Medusa's puffed-up eyes blazed with fury, but she couldn't muster the strength to fight back. Every movement was sluggish, her body heavy as if Felix had drained every last ounce of her power. She tried to speak, but before she could, Felix's hand shot out, smashing whatever was left of her teeth. Yet, she still stood defiantly before him, her eyes not showing an ounce of remorse. Knowing that trying to make her feel guilty was as impossible as making a cat love a bath, Felix pulled back his glowing red fist and uttered coldly, "If only there was a hell for you, I would have visited you to continue our talk. But for now, it's time you say goodbye." The moment he finished speaking, Felix channeled all of his celestial and spiritual powers into his palm, making it glow as brightly as the sun. As he pulled it away from Medusa and targeted the seemingly infinite ocean underneath him, wanting to obliterate her consciousness in one hit, Ymir's calm voice resounded in his mind. "Not in my wildest dreams would I have believed that you would give us this much trouble without Asna's spiritual pressure prowess. I salute you, little one, I genuinely do, your entire existence is an unexplainable miracle." He paused for less than a nanosecond before adding with a bone-chilling tone, "But, we aren't your average foes." The moment Felix heard the last part, he saw Medusa's broken mouth widen creepily like a nightmarish monster catching her victim after a long chase. Then, she broke into light particles with the rest of her consciousness space. Meanwhile, outside of the consciousness space, Felix and Asna were forced to narrow their eyes after brilliant light erupted from both Ymir and Amunare's chests. "This? Why?" Both of them and the rest of the viewers were left stunned at the sight of Ymir's and Amunare's celestial hearts, emerging from within their chests and linking up with a string of celestial energy. "What's going on?" he muttered to himself, tightening his grip on Medusa's heart, having a bad feeling. Alas, before he could think of any precautions, Medusa's heart suddenly jerked violently in his chest and then burst out of it with an unstoppable momentum. "No!" Felix shouted with an ugly expression as he reached out, attempting to catch it. Alas, the heart slipped through his fingers like water and wheezed at the speed of light in the direction of the other two hearts like it was responding to a calling. The lockdown, hey! Just as Asna wanted to depend on the lockdown to do its job and keep it inside, she was shocked to see it pierce through it, failing to contain it. It was like the heart had a single goal in head and nothing could stop it from achieving it. "Here we go!" Lord Hades sighed as he watched the current events. He was cheering for Felix and Asna from the very start. While he was pleased and astounded by their performance, he always knew that the three rulers would never fall this easily. While he had no idea what was going on with the three celestial hearts connecting to make a triangle shape, he understood that the moment for foolery was concluded. Meanwhile, the three rulers' bodies broke into three light particles, orange, blue, and green. Under the eyes of the watchers, the mist of particles was fed to the center of the three linked-up celestial hearts. As the mists started to merge and condense, the three celestial hearts spun rapidly around the triangle's axis. Whoosh! Whoosh! "I don't know what they are planning to do, but we can't sit by and watch them fini." Boom! Asna ended up getting interrupted by a huge explosion of celestial energy that released a wave of destruction. The unbreakable lockdown started showing cracks and fissures here and there, making Felix realize that it was weakening incredibly fast. But, this wasn't on top of his priority list at the moment. Following the blinding explosion, the light started dimming slowly, leaving everyone squinting their eyes at a wavy figure, emerging from the light. "What in the... Impossible! Have they really?" When the figure fully emerged, everyone with two pairs of eyes had them widened to the limit at its shocking appearance. Their reaction was still tame when considering that the three rulers had merged up their bodies, celestial hearts, and even their souls, to become a singular entity. A huge imposing entity with three distinct heads, Ymir's head glowing icy blue, Amonare's radiating fiery gold, and Medusa's murderous expression surrounded by dark green aura. They had 6 arms and 2 legs that supported their towering form with the weight of godlike authority. They were draped in a flowing radiant garment made of divine cloth, mixing with hues of blue, red, and green. As they gazed at Felix and Asna with their glowing dreadful eyes, they made them feel a new level of pressure, an overwhelming pressure that made their hearts skip a beat. "We never believed we would be forced to summon our ultimate form, Brahma, but, you did it." The three rulers spoke in unison, their merged voices became deep and somewhat robotic. "Brahma? How, why am I sensing that you have become a singular entity?" Felix spoke coldly, striving to cover his true emotions from this sudden twist. His senses made him realize that this new entity was too dangerous as he couldn't pick up on its spiritual pressure levels. He knew that failing to do this implied a really bad conclusion. "As much as we would like to answer your questions, unfortunately, we can't maintain this form for long." Brahma responded in harmony while lifting their 6 arms and pointing their palms at Felix and Asna. "So, please perish." Before anyone could react, Brahma released their spiritual pressure at full strength, empowered by all 3 celestial powers combined. While most spiritual pressure attacks are invisible, this one was fully visible to even a mortal as it emerged from their 6 palms as colorful waves of absolute destruction. All Felix could think of as he gazed at the upcoming attack was, "We can't take it." Chapter 1916 Brahma's Unstoppable Spiritual Pressure. The moment the thought registered in his mind, a crushing wave of spiritual pressure slammed into the lockdown with the force to shatter galaxies condensed into a single unbearable attack. Asna's eyes widened as the intensity of the spiritual weight pressed down on her like an excruciating storm. This can't be real," she whispered with a hint of dread as she shielded herself with her spiritual pressure to stay on both feet. The destructive wave of spiritual pressure was so intense, both of them could feel its overwhelming presence trying to cripple them. This was happening while they were still under the protection of the lockdown. Such immense power! Eris murmured with a dazed look, for their spiritual pressure to combine and surpass even Asna's, the fused celestial hearts must have given birth to the closest entity to the universe's consciousness. They may not have received the same information as us about the universe's consciousness, but they weren't stupid to not figure out some of it. Apollo frowned. They must have realized that their hearts can be combined due to their great similarities. Since those hearts belong to the same entity, merging them is the same as giving birth to a weakened version of the universe's consciousness. It looks like they haven't gotten control over the universe's authority, but their spiritual pressure was affected greatly. Eris concurred solemnly as she watched Felix and Asna combine their spiritual pressure to strengthen the lockdown. Alas, the pressure bore down harder, causing long cracks in Felix's lockdown to deepen, splitting wide as the barrier struggled to hold together. "Felix!" Asna called out with a tint of urgency. "We can't hold this." "I know." Felix's jaw clenched, his eyes locked on the sacred Brahma. He could feel it too. The lockdown was on the verge of shattering completely as the power radiating from Brahma was unlike anything he had ever faced. As he kept feeling Brahma's spiritual pressure intensifying rapidly to the point his knees started making creaking noises, he was finally hit with a realization that chilled him to the core: they couldn't win this battle. Not now. Not against Brahma's sheer might. "Asna," Felix muttered through gritted teeth, his eyes locking with hers. "We have to get out of here. Now. You don't have to tell me twice." Asna concurred with a solemn tone. Even without the rulers telling them about the form's weakness being temporary, they would have easily figured it out on their own. After all, if this form didn't require such a heavy investment and could remain permanently, the three rulers would have started their battle with it. Thus, the best option was to retreat and hide until their Brahma form expired. Unfortunately, if they realized as much, then it meant that the three rulers had already prepared countermeasures against it. "None of you are going anywhere," Brahma uttered coldly as they opened up a portal underneath the cracked lockdown and pushed it through with their intense spiritual pressure. As Felix and Asna gazed underneath, they realized that they had been sent to the dimensional pocket of the universe's heart. In fact, it was sitting right behind them, still releasing celestial energy in a misty form. Yet, neither of them bothered to waste their time on it as they realized that their teleportation abilities and such were inactive. "It's the seal. It's the best seal known in the universe, as it is impossible to break it apart without the three rulers' approval," Asna disclosed with a distressed tone while gazing at the flaring seals on the dimension's surface. As someone who spent most of her life sealed, either in the imprisonment grounds or the dimensional pocket, she was quite familiar with their grades. If the seal locking the Void Realm was considered grade 1 while the sealing hall was a grade 5, then, the one used here was a solid 4. Felix knew all of this beforehand, leaving his expression to turn quite ugly at the realization that the three rulers were forcing their hands to fight until the end. This isn't looking good for them. Athena narrowed her eyes at their unenviable situation. It's impossible to break the seal in a short period even if he used those peculiar reality-altering powers. I doubt they can even hold out for a few seconds at most. Aeolus nodded, his stern voice reflecting the gravity of Felix and Asna's dilemma. If the three rulers' spiritual pressure was to ever fall on them, this might be the end. Artemis sighed softly. Felix and Asna knew this all too well, leaving them eyeing each other with sober looks as they weighed their options telepathically. "I can use the Stone of Reality's powers to separate them forcefully, but I don't know how long it will take or the price required," Felix shared. "It's too risky." Asna rejected it. "Any modifications used on the three rulers cost significantly more resources than doing it on your own. I would rather have you invest all your celestial energy in yourself." "I think so too." Felix concurred in agreement. He knew that if he attempted to weaken the three rulers' spiritual pressure or separate them, he might not be able to afford the cost even if he paid everything he owned. Fortunately, the son of Ra had helped him pull off his main plan without investing much of his own celestial energy. This meant, he still possessed quite a decent amount in his reserve. "Where is your gusto and bravado from earlier?" Brahma taunted with the same metallic-like voice, but Felix immediately recognized that it was Medusa speaking. Her bloodied expression from before was nowhere to be seen, replaced by a murderous sinister look. Crack! Crack! As Felix saw the lockdown barely holding on to its dear life, he ignored Medusa's ridicule and got into work, his fingers flying across the wall of logic. Since he was focusing primarily on himself, he instantly finished the modification and began pouring all of his celestial energy into the small dark hole on the surface of the fabric of logic. As it devoured celestial energy like a hungry hippo, Felix could feel his spiritual pressure increasing at a rapid pace. Shatter! Alas, the lockdown finally gave out. Brace for impact! Felix bellowed as he stood in front of Asna. After a thunderous explosion of particles, Felix and Asna steeled their guts and channeled everything in their power to summon their strongest burst of divine spiritual pressure. This resulted in the birth of two visible waves of destruction, one black, and the other white. They merged together as they headed to take on Brahma's spiritual pressure directly. Boom! With a deafening roar, the two spiritual waves collided in the center of the pocket dimension, creating a catastrophic impact. Time seemed to halt for a moment as the beams clashed, their energies grinding against each other in a struggle for dominance. Then, with an explosion that defied comprehension, the collision unleashed an astronomical shockwave that erupted outward, obliterating everything in its path. Entire landscapes were erased in an instant as the raw spiritual pressure tore through the fabric of reality, leaving the strongest dimension in the universe to tremble on the brink of collapse. Space twisted, matter disintegrated, and the ground beneath them vanished into nothingness. All was swallowed by the storm of energy, turning the dimension into a piece of void. Yet, the universe's heart remained untouched. The core of existence kept pulsing with an otherworldly light, serene and immovable as if mocking them. Yet, no one seemed to pay it any attention as everyone's eyes were affixed on the point of contact between the spiritual waves. When they saw that Felix's and Asna's beams were being pushed back gradually, the viewers were left with mixed emotions. Lord Hades and the other Unigens had bitter smiles, the tenants shared solemn looks with hints of despair in them, while Cronus merely had a knowing smile. As he gazed at Felix's hardened eyes from a distance, he seemed to be looking into his consciousness space, or to be more precisely, at one of the tenants. Loki, I think it's time you show the Joker card. He thought to himself. As he was believing this, a single thought was coursing through Lord Loki's mind as he watched Felix and Asna getting pushed to a dead end. They were struggling heavily and he knew that it wouldn't be long before their spiritual pressure gave in. Oh, how I wished we won without needing me to use it. Lord Loki showed a bitter hopeless smile, I guess I was really asking for a lot. Queen AI. Yes, Master. Queen AI responded instantly. Lord Loki seized a deep breath and ordered with a deadpan look, it's time my love, activate the Ascension Protocol. Chapter 1917 I am sorry. Many years ago. Inside a dimly lit chamber that hummed with the soft sound of machinery, Queen AI's supermassive brain was seen encased in a glass container filled with a strange luminescent liquid. It was connected with countless cables, pulsing with blue light continuously. Loki sat before her in silence, his sharp eyes scanning the holographic data around him, showing lines of intricate code, graphs measuring cognitive capabilities, and projections of seemingly endless calculations. His expression was unreadable as he was buried in his thoughts. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound echoing in the gloomy chamber was Loki's fingers tapping rhythmically on the armrest of his chair. After a short while, he broke the silence. How much more? Loki asked solemnly, how much more data do we need before we surpass Unigen's consciousness prowess? There was a pause, the lights within Queen AI's container flickered as she responded with an emotionless voice. Based on the current data projections and calculations, the amount of data needed to exceed Unigen's level of consciousness is still astronomical. Astronomical. Loki frowned, give me numbers. It's impossible to pinpoint the exact numbers needed. Queen AI replied, based on the data about the celestial entities. To reach their level, we will need to acquire significantly more cognitive data in the hundreds of quintillions if not more. Ah! Loki exhaled softly, leaning back in his chair with a helpless look. His fingers halted the rhythmic tapping, and he crossed his arms over his chest. He gazed at the glowing container thoughtfully as the weight of her words sank in. So we're still far, far, behind, he muttered to himself. Queen Ai's voice remained steady. Correct, the data required to achieve such a leap is not easily obtainable. We will need to access sources of knowledge beyond what we currently have, unconventional methods, or tapping into realms of thought we have yet to explore. Loki's lips broke into a bitter smile as he said, unexplored realms, you say? I have already fed you data from every accessible realm. Ever since the birth of UVR and Queen Ai, Lord Loki had been feeding her unique data non-stop to enhance her consciousness prowess. With almost everyone in the universe connected to the UVR, anything they saw or found was being added to her database, strengthening her even further. In fact, everyone was living under the illusion that they had free choice in what kind of data they could allow Queen Ai access to. For example, Queen Ai tried many times to buy unique data from Felix like the ancient languages or such. Unbeknownst to him at the time, whether he accepted the trade or not, Queen Ai was still getting the data she wanted since she was operating under Loki's orders first and foremost. In other words, she could break the laws of the rule book as long as Lord Loki ordered her. Now, imagine how much data she had access to for millions of years when the AP bracelets served as her eyes and ears across the entire universe. I really thought that the new data from the quantum realm and celestial beings would be enough to make the last push. Loki sighed, I guess I still underestimated the celestial's consciousness level. It's nowhere close to a Unigen's level. Queen Ai remained silent, hearing to his thought process. Is this it? To harvest that much unique information is impossible unless we discovered a whole new universe and handed everyone in it AP bracelets. Lord Loki understood that even then, they would need to wait for eons until they could harvest enough for the initial push. Is it really impossible without going that far? Loki murmured, without becoming a monster. Queen Ai stayed silent, but it was all the confirmation he needed. Loki stood up and walked to Queen Ai's container. He reached out with his hand and caressed the glass gently. Then, he inquired with a faint voice, My love, are you guaranteed to ascend if we use the forceful protocol? Calculating, yes. Queen Ai confirmed monotonously, based on the data, my consciousness will touch upon divinity for a few moments. Loki closed his eyes as he placed his forehead in the glass container. Then, he murmured, what are the odds of you surviving the process? 0%. Queen Ai answered calmly. What about the others? 0%. All of this for a brief peek upon divinity, is it even worth it? Will it make any difference? Loki smiled wryly as he gazed into the ceiling. Just like Lord Shiva, Loki's dream was always the death of the three rulers after they were told that their birth was meaningless and served nothing but to entertain them. Ever since then, he held this grudge deeply in his eyes without showing it to anyone, masking it with his playful and unserious persona. While Lord Shiva desired to destroy the universe and kill everyone in it for the sake of uprooting their entertainment stage, Lord Loki had a much more devious plan. He wanted to actually harm the three rulers and even sought to kill them. He didn't care if he failed, as long as he harmed them, he was willing to die on that hill. In his eyes, it was all worth it to touch those gods and show them that they were not invincible. The method he devised was to utilize the metal race's infinite growth potential after realizing that their consciousness prowess was linked to how much data they possessed. With a target in mind, Loki created the UVR and Queen Ai. With his illusion powers, no one had any chance to find out or do anything to stop it. After the birth of Queen Ai and UVR, his plan was in full motion and all he needed to do was wait patiently as Queen Ai continued to increase her spiritual prowess. But, after Felix came into the picture and saw how he was growing much stronger than Queen Ai, he started placing his bets on him. After Felix ascended to a Unigen and a Celestial, he even started thinking of completely giving up on his plan. After all, he found out more about the Unigens, and the three rulers, making him understand that his plan was foolish from the very start. Those three monsters could never be taken down by his beloved creation unless a miracle occurred. Thus, he cheered on Felix, just like any other primogenitor, desiring his justice, even when he found out later that their birth served a big role in the universe's consciousness rebirth. Still, the seeds of hatred were already buried deeply and he still desired the erasure of the three rulers. Just when he thought that his ludicrous plan would be concealed for eternity, he was given a chance to cast light on it. Although when he knew that the consequences were too much to stomach for anyone, Loki still uttered with a solemn tone, "It's time, my love, activate the Ascension Protocol." The moment the order reached Queen Ai, the blue glow in the chamber flickered and then turned a deep, ominous red. The blue pulses that had once traveled through the cables connected to Queen Ai's brain shifted in color, morphing into a sinister crimson. Meanwhile, all across the universe, individuals wearing AP bracelets, scientists, explorers, fighters, civilians, and leaders, felt a vibration on their wrists. In that instant, a single notification appeared on every bracelet's interface. "I am sorry." The message was short, cryptic, and cold, but there was no time to process it. No time to understand what those three words meant. Before anyone could even react, a wave of overwhelming pressure crashed through their minds. One by one, the eyes of every person wearing the bracelet rolled back into their heads. Their bodies stiffened as their consciousnesses were forcibly ripped from them, leaving behind nothing but hollow, lifeless shells. Across entire cities, planets, and star systems, people collapsed, their minds violently severed from their bodies. Loki was watching those horrific scenes of people of all races, ages, and genders, collapsing into corpses everywhere. The numbers weren't in the thousands, millions, billions, or even quadrillions, it was a number with so many zeros, that one would need minutes to enunciate all of it. All of those lives collapsed at once. This resulted in players within the games dying and so as the viewers in the stands. Fighters within war-ridden battlefields to perish together. Families enjoying a nice dinner to fall face flat on the table. The Scallions' inner and outer leaders collapse in meetings with each other, in their bedrooms, and even during a speech in front of their entire nations. But, fret not. No one was there to witness it, as even the ones without AP bracelets had their consciousness snatched from them as long as they were close to someone wearing it. In other words, not even babies were spared. Yet, the shocking part? He showed no mercy to anyone, not even Felix's friends and loved ones, including Olivia, Selphie, Bodadai, Allura, and every one of Felix's subordinates. As he watched their eyes reflect a soulless and confused gaze while lying on the ground motionlessly, all he could do was tighten his grip on the edge of the control panel. I am sorry, but it had to be done." Loki bit his lip tightly until blood seeped down his chin. Yet, he felt no pain as his heart died out the moment the order was given. It had to be done, it's either them or us, there is no in between. No in between. Chapter 1918 What have you done? Meanwhile, a few moments earlier, Felix and Asna were still holding strong against Brahma's spiritual pressure, but everyone could see that it wouldn't be long before they got overwhelmed. Damn it! Grow faster! Faster! Felix gritted his teeth in desperation, releasing every ounce of his spiritual pressure, holding nothing back. If it weren't for his spiritual pressure increasing continuously, he would have already gotten crushed with Asna. Felix! I don't see another way out. I have to do it! Asna yelled. She wasn't having it any better than Felix. Her knees were already getting buckled in while her face contorted to an unrecognizable look. The pressure was so intense, it felt like they were being crushed by the weight of the entire universe. No. We just need to hold on. Their form is bound to weaken. Felix rejected her suggestion vehemently. During their preparation, they had decided on a last Hail Mary strategy in case they were placed in a deadlock with no way out. It was none other than making Asna blow her soul to pieces right next to the three rulers. They knew that a celestial soul explosion was powerful enough to take down even celestials if they were hit by it directly without countermeasures. If it didn't succeed, it would give Felix enough energy to deconstruct into more celestial energy, which would refuel his tank. But, Felix knew that it would be useless against the current Brahma's form. They will easily survive the explosion in this form. Felix groaned in pain as he got pushed into his knees. The energy produced won't be helpful to me at all. If it was any other situation, Felix wouldn't be saying this. But, he understood that what he needed was time and not energy, since his spiritual pressure was trying its best to catch up while feeding on his celestial energy. Still struggling? Why, you already know the outcome. Suddenly, Brahma's cold harmonious voice resounded on the battlefield. When Felix and Asna looked at their taunting expressions, their hearts burned up in hatred and wrath. Alas, such emotions had no place in this conflict. Both of them knew that the three rulers were using spiritual pressure to ensure that neither of them utilized their 7 virtues/sin laws on them. After all, while the spiritual pressure forced them to stay in place, it also forced Felix and Asna to focus on nothing but defending against it. Otherwise, a mere lapse of focus was enough for the waves to crush on them akin to tsunamis, making it impossible to recover from it. If you want to win against their spiritual pressure, you need another celestial heart or the assistant of one. Eris shared with a solemn tone, right now, it's 3 celestial hearts merged against 2 celestial hearts. It will be impossible to win even if the spiritual enhancement concluded. Felix heard her and knew that she was right, that's why he was only seeking to resist and hold until their form died out. But, it wasn't looking too good. Just as the three rulers were about to fire another taunt, knowing that Felix's and Asna's were sealed, their senses picked up an unsettling feeling. It wasn't just them. Did you feel that? Athena narrowed her eyes in confusion. Yes, it's coming from the matter universe. Aeolus and Artemis nodded with solemn looks as they extended their senses to peer at what was going on out there to make their senses tingle this way. Their divine senses reached out, scanning the vast stretches of the universe beyond the pocket dimension. When everyone's eyes landed on the ocean of fallen corpses across the entire universe, their eyes couldn't help but widen in disbelief. As Felix saw the corpses of his friends and subordinates, his pupils reflected nothing but utter indifference. He managed to shut down his emotions at first sight, knowing that it was going to affect him gravely, ruining his focus instantly. This even made him think that the three rulers had something to do with this to destabilize his heart. But, before this thought could register in his mind, everyone managed to find out the culprit behind such a harrowing scene. The universe gave them a hint as a golden divine pillar emerged from within Queen Ai's location, piercing through the 7 skies. As the heavens split open, bathed in the glow of Queen Ai's divine ascension, everyone's eyes widened in disbelief at the immense spiritual pressure released within the pillar. How is this possible? Artemis covered her mouth. A goddess, born before our eyes, Aeolus murmured in awe as he watched a goddess-like figure of Queen Ai emerge from the golden pillar. Queen Ai. Even Felix and Asna had their eyes on her while still struggling against Brahma's overwhelming pressure. They couldn't believe their eyes as it fed them a new look of Queen Ai, being radiant and as beautiful as any celestial being. She possessed a divine humanoid body while her skin was smooth and perfect. Her eyes were soft, luminous silver, reflecting the vast knowledge of the cosmos hidden beneath them. Unlike any holographic variation of Queen Ai, her eyes seemed brimming with life. She was wearing nothing, but her long lustrous grey hair covered most of her curves, making her exude the grace of a goddess, who has transcended all limitations. She gazed down at her palms, her fingers gently curling as if she were feeling the warmth of her new flesh for the first time. Her lips parted slightly, and in a soft, almost disbelieving whisper, she murmured, "Is this how being alive feels like?" As everyone heard her feminine and gentle voice, the familiar monotonous voice they were used to, shattered in their minds akin to a broken mirror. Are my eyes playing a trick on me? How can this happen? Thor exclaimed in shock, his reaction shared by everyone involved. Loki, what have you done? Lady Sphinx was quick to realize that this was Loki's doing, as she was one of the few ones who knew that he was involved in a hidden experiment. But, not in her wildest dreams, had she expected him to be so bold, so cruel, to sacrifice 99% of the Skallians' population for this. I did what needed to be done. Loki didn't shy away from responsibility, as he didn't hesitate to call Felix. Felix! Bring her in. This was the beauty of having complete control over one's emotions. Felix heard their conversation and knew that Loki was responsible for the death of everyone, even his loved ones. Yet, the moment he heard his voice, he didn't hesitate to open up a void portal, connecting him with Queen Ai. It took him no time to realize that Loki decided to bet everything and everyone on him, which wasn't fair in the slightest to the entire population of the universe. After all, in his eyes, if Felix won, he would become the universe's consciousness and would have the power to restore everything and everyone to normal. But, if he lost, the three rulers would kill them all and would reach the other side. Why, this was unfair to the mortals. Whether Felix won or lost, they had nothing to do with their heavenly matters. In other words, even if they lost, the three rulers wouldn't have touched them. That's why Loki knew that what he did was despicable, and if it wasn't for Felix's ability to keep his emotions under his control, he would have already crashed out. After all, he was wasting a great deal of heavenly energy to protect everyone in the alliance, just to have them killed by none other than his ally. It was the ultimate treachery, even if it was done to save him. But, Felix's mind completely blocked those thoughts and had him focus on one thing: win. Why? Because he understood that defeat no longer affected him and Asna alone. If he lost, all lives lost because of Loki's insidious plan would fall with him. All of this went through Felix's mind as he gazed at Queen Ai's step through the void portal from behind them in a graceful fashion. She had a wide stunning grin as she extended her palm and placed it on his back. Felix Maxwell, you were one of the few ones treating me kindly and not as a mere tool ever since you had me. Queen Ai said gently, I only have 3 seconds at most before my awareness collapses. There is nothing I can do about it, but if it's you, I don't mind listening to my father's orders one last time. As she uttered this, memories of how Felix always thanked Queen Ai and spoke to her in a polite tone even when he had gotten much stronger than her, resurfaced in his mind. For almost everyone with an AP bracelet and a connection to Queen Ai, she was nothing but a mere tool or a weapon, a tool to fulfill everyone's requests and a weapon that kept the SG Alliance safe and in order. But, Felix saw her as an entity with a soul and treated her as such simply because she was always good to him. Asna always questioned his attitude towards Queen Ai, saying that he was an idiot for doing that. Who would have thought that a day would come when those little benevolent actions, that everyone ignored and thought of as useless, would be the very reason he was being helped? Queen Ai. Before Felix could react, he suddenly felt the intense spiritual pressure of Brahma's weaken immensely, like she had taken the bulk of it on herself. I can only take off some of the pressure for a few moments. I know it's not much. Queen Ai uttered with a slight grimace as she channeled all of her spiritual pressure to fend off Brahma's. No, it's everything I ever needed. Felix uttered with a cold tone. Chapter 1919 Reclaim Your Throne. A few seconds for mortals was nothing, but for celestials, it was a lifetime. Now that the intense pressure had been taken off him, Felix was given the chance to return to his original strategy. Without an ounce of hesitation, he reached out to the fabric of reality. Then, with a focused motion, his hand moved through the air rapidly, searching for the threads that bound the rulers together. You are seeking to separate them. Asna's eyes gleamed, realizing that the only way to defeat Brahma was to divide the three rulers. After all, the three rulers' spiritual pressure would return to their standard strength while their spiritual pressure would remain at its overwhelming strength. But, where will you be getting the celestial energy? Asna narrowed her eyes sternly. From nowhere. Felix uttered coldly as his fingers kept coursing through the wall of logic. Don't tell me. We are at an impasse. It has to be done. Felix interrupted before she could fight him. I have your back. Knowing that arguing in such a critical moment wouldn't help them with anything, Asna could only harden her expression and continue resisting Brahma's pressure. As Felix kept searching for Brahma's weakness, the three rulers' eyes were all focused on Queen Ai's divine form. How blasphemous! First a mortal and now a mere Ai dares to trespass into the grounds of celestials. Brahma gazed at Queen Ai coldly. It was clear that none of them appreciated the thought of another entity reaching their rank. They could understand Felix's situation as he was heavily connected to the universe's consciousness, but Queen Ai's? Never. Let's give you a warm welcome. With a deep collective sneer, Brahma channeled their spiritual pressure on Queen Ai, primarily focusing on her, wanting to mash her into a blob. Queen Ai was already having a tough time before. Now that most of the pressure was on her, everyone could see that she wasn't faring well. Her entire body was bent over while her divine aura wrapped around her like it was facing the gravitational pull of a super black hole. Yet, she still didn't crumble. Queen. The moment Queen Ai saw the look of distress on Felix's face emerge due to her unfavorable situation, she interrupted him with a gentle voice, "Don't worry about me, this much pressure is nothing to me compared to what I experienced." Felix remained silent, knowing that Queen Ai was talking about all the data she devoured throughout her years of activity, most importantly, the live data harvested from the current population of the universe. Queen Ai might seem like she was giving up her life for nothing when she had the powers of a celestial and could do much more, but in reality, she had already lived everything to be lived. After devouring the consciousness of the Scallions' citizens, she also obtained their memories from birth and had to live each life through their lenses. In other words, Queen Ai had already lived an unfathomable number of lives, ranging from the best, the good, the bad, to the worst. Knowing this, Felix continued placing his hopes on Queen Ai as he focused every atom of his brain power on finding Brahma's weakness. I don't need to break their merge or destroy it, I just need to create a tiny disturbance. Felix thought to himself as his pupils reflected trillions of inscriptions flashing rapidly. He knew that a tiny disturbance was enough to shatter the delicate balance needed to hold down their three hearts without the right host. After all, if it were possible without the right host, the three rulers wouldn't need to consume so much celestial energy to make it happen. Found it. Fortunately, Felix was now highly experienced at filtering the wall of reality, making him sense the invisible threads of reality that held the three rulers together, the fragile bond that connected their hearts and allowed them to become Brahma. Without an ounce of hesitation, he reached out with his reality-altering powers, searching for the exact point of connection, the place where the fusion was most vulnerable. This is where it ends. With a cold smirk, Felix twisted the unseen threads of reality, his mind homing in on the bond between the three celestial hearts. In an instant, he grasped the connection, feeling the beating of energy that flowed between Ymir, Amonare, and Medusa's hearts. The rulers sensed it immediately. Ymir's icy gaze snapped toward Felix, his cold expression faltering as he realized what was happening. "You dare!" His voice, typically steady and measured, now resonated with urgency. Before the rest could react, Felix severed the connection between the three celestial hearts, causing a shockwave to ripple through the air as the bond between Ymir, Amonare, and Medusa shattered. Their towering figure began to tremble, causing cracks to form along their divine form as their combined spiritual pressure weakened. Ymir splintered, his power disconnecting from the others, leaving him exposed. Amonare emerged with a dimming radiant light around him while Medusa's dark green aura seemed to have turned light, losing its overwhelming authority. All of them came out of the merger, looking weaker and angrier than ever. You bastard, what have you done?" Amonare roared hatefully, his bloodshot eyes about to spew knives at Felix. His reaction was understandable as the three overlords had suffered from a nasty backlash after their merge was broken forcefully. This meant, Even if Felix had merely disturbed them a little, they were screwed big time, as they could not go for another merge anytime soon. If it wasn't such a sensitive and flawed technique, they wouldn't have left it as a last resort. Meanwhile, Felix's situation wasn't pleasant as well. Everyone was stunned to see celestial chains emerging out of nowhere and snapping around Felix's wrists, torso, legs, and the rest of his body parts. He abused his powers. Artemis covered her mouth immediately. He is going to be completely hopeless now. Aeolus frowned deeply as he watched the sea of chains grasping Felix from everywhere like a cosmic fugitive. By their overwhelming number, everyone could tell that he had done more than abuse his laws. He abused his celestial powers, which meant the punishment was going to be much more severe. But Felix didn't care. Crush them. His eyes burned with unwavering resolve and fury as he channeled every ounce of his spiritual pressure and descended it on the three rulers. Asna and Queen Ai backed him up. Together, their spiritual pressure swelled, creating a tidal wave of raw energy that began to press down on the three rulers with unimaginable force. The tables have turned so fast that the viewers had no idea how to react when the three overlords were overwhelmed. The worst part was that the three rulers' spiritual pressure was weakened immensely after the separation. Fortunately for them, Felix's spiritual pressure was also hit massively as the celestial chains kept getting hold of him. This gave the three overlords a slim chance of surviving against the intense pressure. Just hold. He will lose his strength completely in a moment or less. Amonare shouted with bloodshot eyes as he gazed at the chained-up Felix. He knew that the moment Felix's strength got sapped, it would be their victory since his powers would be sealed completely. However, Felix also knew about this and understood that the moment he went for this last move, he had to emerge victorious. Thus, the moment he noticed that the three overlords were completely grounded by their spiritual pressure, making them unable of moving an inch, he didn't hesitate to turn around and gaze at Asna with a solemn look. Asna hardened her expression and gave him a slight nod, then with a loving smile, she grasped out with her hand and held his arm. Before anyone could react, she hurled him toward the universe's heart with everything she had. The three rulers, the Unigens, and the tenants all watched with widened eyes as Felix's chained-up body pierced through the misty celestial fog akin to a divine spear, aiming directly at the tiny white dot. "Go, my love, reclaim your throne." Asna murmured gently as she gazed at Felix's shadow, disappearing through the thick white mist. "Nu! Get back here!" Meanwhile, the three rulers' expressions swiftly turned outrageous at the notion of another entity besides them getting close to the universe's heart. To make matters worse, Felix wasn't any other entity, he was the sole host capable of integrating with the universe's heart. Alas, all they could do was try to break past the spiritual pressure. As for Felix, his pupils were already reflecting the true appearance of the universe's heart as he was a mere kilometers away from it. It was a sphere in the shape of a marble, radiating celestial energy and light everywhere. Yet, Felix's eyes focused on what was hidden within it. It was an endless ocean of colorful spheres, shining brilliantly across its surface and moving continuously akin to fish, swimming in a bowl. Are those galaxies? No, they are spherical in shape. Before Felix could wonder about it, his thoughts were interrupted by a thunderous heartbeat resounding deeply in his soul. Ka-thum. The moment he heard it, all of Felix's heartbeats synced up with it, seemingly accepting that its heartbeats were the right rhythm. Before Felix could do anything, his chest suddenly opened up on its own, exposing his internal system. Then, the stone of reality willingly moved to the side, freeing up the main heart location. It was like welcoming the universe's heart into its rightful place. Chapter 1921 Last Push. While it was clear that his body desired the universe's heart and it didn't seem like the heart planned on stopping him, the celestial chains were a different story. They were operating under the rigid laws of the universe and at the moment, the only thing going through their divine essence was to limit Felix's movements completely. Thus, one chain at a time, Felix slowed down heavily as they kept tugging him away from the universe's heart. The worst part? His powers were already 99% sealed, leaving him incapable of using any of his abilities or techniques. He is being held back. Artemis covered her widened mouth. Will he make it? I don't know. Athena replied, her solemn eyes affixed on Felix. Everyone could see that the distance between him and the universe's heart was in the 100 meters, a distance that was supposed to be nothing to Unigens or Celestials. Yet, in Felix's situation, it felt like he crawled through the thickest swamp, hoping to cross over. If only I can help him. Lord Hades tightened his grasp on his armstand in agitation. For the Lord of the Underworld, he seldom showed emotions. But, at this very moment, he wanted nothing more than to help Felix, even by a mere push. While he wanted to help him, it still didn't mean that he regretted his previous choice of not handing out his core to him. His duties as the guardian of souls came always first. Alas, even if he wanted to help, he knew that the dimensional pocket seal made it impossible for portals to work. In other words, even if he unlocked a spirit portal next to Felix, he wouldn't be capable to travel across it. The only reason Queen Ai was capable of entering Felix's void portal was because she ascended to celestial ranks, causing the universe to lead her to the eternal kingdom. Since she stepped inside Felix's portal willingly, the universe had allowed her entry bypassing the seal's powers. Felix knew this when he opened the void portal. That's why he went for it so quickly, understanding that if he didn't actively help her come here, the universe would pull her into the eternal kingdom forcefully and throw her somewhere random. Damn it, if only our cores weren't held hostage by those bastards. Aeolus cursed hatefully. Right now, everyone seemed to want nothing but to help Felix make contact with the universe's heart while the three rulers were still being held back. Alas, Athena, Aeolus, and Artemis were mere spectators as the moment they tried to participate the three rulers would destroy their cores. Asna and Queen Ai were already going far and beyond to keep the weakened three rulers held down. Ha, ha, aha. In the end, you fell short. Amonare broke into a crazed mocking laughter as he gazed at Felix resisting the tug of thousands of chains. Although his situation wasn't favorable too, he understood that they would escape sooner than later as Felix's spiritual pressure was dying out rapidly. When that happened, it was a game over for all of them. This was what the three rulers assumed would happen, but Felix was never alone. I will be damned if I watched my student die at the end of his path. Meanwhile, Thor chugged a barrel of wine before wiping his wet mouth with his sleeves. Then, with a cold smirk, he exited Felix's consciousness space as a mere wisp, appearing right behind Felix in a fading spiritual form. Master! Felix muttered in a daze as he watched his master place his hands on his back. Bring it home, son. With a faint gentle smile, Thor burned through his consciousness and used the fuel to push Felix as hard as he could. When the tenants saw this, all of them glanced at each other for less than a nanosecond before the same look took over their faces, a look of utter resolve. Then, one by one, they exited Felix's consciousness space and placed their hands on his back, shoulders, and thighs. When no space was left, the rest appeared in front of him and held the celestial chains from the front, wanting to pull him. Hormungandr, Sphinx, Loki, Shiva, Chaos, Yggdrasil, Cyclope, Marduk, Candace, Nemo, Apollo, and even Eris came out. His entire family offered their help, no matter how small it was, creating a scene that caught everyone by surprise. Give them hell! Shiva sneered. You came so far, further than my wildest imagination, I am proud of you. Hormungandr smiled kindly. I am relying on you to learn about the universe's truth. Lady Sphinx said calmly. My idol, you have won all your games and this is nothing but another one. Apollo laughed. Everyone. All Felix could do was gaze at their content smiles while they burned through their life force, mental energy, and whatever resource of energy in their disposal to push him. While the wisps of consciousness had nothing much to offer, the ones with their main consciousness away didn't hesitate to burn through even their souls for the sake of him. Puyush! With one united shout from everyone, Felix found himself sent flying again in the direction of the universe's heart against the tugging of the chains. As he flew forward akin to a dying star, he couldn't help but turn his head one last time. The moment he did, his emotionless eyes showed hints of appreciation, respect, and love at the sight of his family fading into nothingness. Knowing that it was not the time for emotions, Felix gritted his teeth as he fought back against the strains of the chains, his body screaming from the effort. 50 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters, 10 meters. As Felix's pupils reflected the glow of the universe's heart, he felt his acceleration dying off rapidly as the number of chains was simply too much to handle. This is not how I fail. He growled, low at first, but his frustration and defiance grew with every heartbeat. Then, with a thunderous roar that reverberated across the shattered battlefield, he reached out with his arm towards the heart, resisting the tightness of the chains. This is not where I perish. With one final, desperate surge of strength, Felix's fingers brushed against the universe's heart. The moment his hand made contact, silence seemed to have occupied the battlefield as everyone's eyes were frozen on Felix's fingers that brushed the universe's heart surface. Before anyone could react, the entire dimension erupted in a brilliant, blinding explosion of light, forcing everyone to shield their eyes but the three rulers. Is it happening? Ymir, Amonare, and Medusa had their eyes wide open through the excruciating pain, their hearts seemed gripped by the thought of finally gazing at the other side. But alas, nothing was shown. Instead, a divine shockwave shot outward, shattering the celestial chains, and causing countless spatial cracks to spread out across the pocket dimension. Yet, no one paid attention to any of this as Felix's overwhelming presence had captured everyone's attention instantly. Freed from his shackles, Felix floated high above with his arms extended outward while his head was lifted to the limit, seemingly taking the position of someone ascending to the high heavens. He was glowing with the energy of creation, making him resemble the one and only, true divinity.